sustainability and blockchain technology, contradiction or synergy?
That is it. I'm staying on stage, but we're getting started with the second panel in the sustainability track. It's about sustainability and blockchain technology. It's similar to the last panel, and you might have the same question. How does this work? Blockchain and sustainability. Because the usual association is that blockchain is dirty technology because Bitcoin uses a lot of electricity. And that is true. Nobody is denying it. If you are listening to the other panel, there were some solutions and some reasons why the electricity consumption of Bitcoin is not necessarily only a bad thing. However, in this panel, we are going to talk about new solutions and the synergy between sustainability and blockchain, because it is not only about Bitcoin mining, it is about many, many other solutions. With that, a warm applause for all our speakers here before we get started. Thank you very much. I will suggest that you just start introducing yourself, starting with Razvan.
Thank you, Ferris. My name is Razvan Nemes. I lead enterprise architecture at KPMG, and I've been working in emerging technologies for over 15 years now. I work across a number of industries, from iGaming, financial services, public sector, and me and my team, we strive to drive innovation and to bring the right technology for the right purpose. And I think blockchain and sustainability are much more synonymous than people might think. Looking forward to a good panel today.
Glen, if you continue with the short introduction.
Yeah, sure. My name is Glen Smith. I have been working in advertising and marketing my whole life, and I was working in iGaming in that function when I first came down to Malta 8 years ago. I also got very involved in environmental and sustainability issues while I was working with some of the big iGaming companies. I ended up organizing large-scale environmental cleanups, both for the iGaming volunteers and also for local volunteer groups and NGOs. And recently, I came into contact with a company which has an amazing blockchain solution for dealing with plastic pollution in the environment, which is why I am here today.
Thank you very much. Nicole?
Hi. By my full-time job, basically, I'm a manager at 𝐒𝐿, which is a public-private partnership between the government of Malta and the Malta Chamber of Commerce. So we tackle both sides. And I'm also let's say, like an independent consultant for blockchain projects tackling the business side of things.
Thanks. Shannon, last but not least.
Hi, my name is Shannon. I'm the founder and strategic director at Numinara. We're a business consultancy that specializes in ESG reporting and strategy, with a specific focus around venture capital firms, SMEs, and well-funded startups that are starting to feel the pain sitting in supply chain and through investor demand.
You guys, I'm so happy that we have you as panelists here. I think we're going to have an interesting conversation about blockchain and sustainability, but before we start, I have one question for each of you. So Shannon, we start with you. Tell me, what do you believe the current status of ESG is, and what are the key drivers and challenges that most businesses are facing today?
Okay, so I think there's three critical things driving the demand for ESG reporting at the moment. So the one is investor demand. So investors are asking for sustainable information because this obviously affects your profitability and your future value. I think there's also an increase in consumer pressure. So people are also asking for us to disclose sustainable information. They're only looking to invest in products and services that align to their values. And then we've obviously got regulatory requirements. So in most countries and jurisdictions, this is now becoming mandatory. And I think it's causing a lot of problems for companies now, especially the listed companies are all supposed to report, and now we're seeing the impact on supply chain. So collecting this data is complex, it's time consuming. Companies are nervous to start their journey because they're scared of greenwashing, because they have to document and back up any statements. So I think it comes with challenges, and I think at this stage, there's also no singular universal framework. So how do you actually measure your performance against other companies?
Nicole, you are an independent blockchain consultant. Tell us, how do blockchain technology change businesses and supply chain management today?
Okay, so generally I always focus on three things, and that is traceability, transparency, and trust. And given the given the fact that supply chains obviously go through both the public and the private sectors, it is changing them in a way that monitoring the let's say the regulations and the guidelines that are being issued by the EU and even on a global level, they are obviously changing the functions, how and businesses work. Of course, blockchain is, let's say, obviously I have a blockchain background and I might be a little bit biased, but it is changing the way that maybe how, let's say, products and services are being sourced. And of course, like we were discussing about the ESG, for example, focusing on the social aspect of things, it's that how services and products are being sourced, and obviously monitoring the labor of the workers as well. So it is being, like how I said, maybe blockchain is not 100% energy efficient. There can be ways of, of that being excluded. However, it is obviously changing the ways of how it is being seen. Again, through different, it is not just blockchain, through different uses of different technologies as well, we can shift the idea of digitalization as well. Focusing on the trust side of things, it is important obviously to know that through blockchain, we and obviously through its transparency and traceability, we can actually monitor the regulations like the Green Deal and the Digital Decade, and how are member states actually abiding by it.
Thanks a lot. So Glen, blockchain technology is unique. Tell us, what is the value that blockchain brings to environmental sustainability that no other technology has?
Right. Well, I'm here for a very specific purpose. I represent a company which has launched a plastic credit for companies to be able to offset their plastic footprint. So my interest in blockchain is pretty much purely limited to that. But what I do understand is that what blockchain brings to this is transparency. The fact that the World Wildlife Fund in a recent report stated there are 32 different plastic credits currently on the market. There is no standardization for it, and none of them actually guarantee recycling of plastic as part of their process. The difference with this, the CSR plastic credit, which I'm here to represent today, is the fact that because it's a blockchain token, there is a guarantee of recycling actually happening, because these tokens can only be generated when plastic has been actually physically removed from the environment and recycled. So it's basically that. It's the fact that we can create a global standard for plastic tokens, which is kind of incontrovertible. And the fact is that because it's a blockchain token, certification of plastic neutrality comes from the blockchain itself, not from a certification agency or any other organization out there which might have a different agenda. So yeah, really from that perspective, the blockchain is the perfect platform for a global standard for plastic credits. Simple as that.
Sounds awesome. I agree with you. Razvan, tell us, what tangible and practical support can blockchain bring to ESG practice?
Well, I think we need to look at blockchain from two perspectives. Blockchain as a technology, as a foundational technology for ESG, and then blockchain as a vehicle, right? So because you mentioned earlier the amount of energy consumption. It's funny, right? When Ethereum did the switch, the famous switch from proof of stake to proof of work, proof of work to proof of stake. Sorry, electricity consumption was reduced by 99.9% like this overnight. So it's something that's evolving, and it's being improved over time. And by that, I also want to draw the parallel to people often have this misconception that if it's online, if it's on the cloud or something, it's not consuming a lot of energy. It is. So everything that is not blockchain, there is classical computing and there is blockchain computing. Classical computing consumes a lot of energy. There are data centers 3 times the size of this entire Sigma setup here that consume a lot of water, a lot of electricity, a lot of cooling, a lot of blockchain is a concept of decentralizing not just the information, but the workload, the energy consumption. It's decentralized. It's divided between everybody who participates in the chain. Yes, there are still central nodes that do a lot of the compute and the processing, but it's much less significant than huge data centers that may have 20% utilization. You may have a data center that is geared up to serve 2 million customers in Europe, but it only has 20% utilization at any one given point, which means that 80% of those resources are wasted. Blockchain is use as need. There is no compute and there is no resource wasting when something is not happening on the blockchain. That's as a technology. And then as a driver, it's funny because when we look at ESG, right, from an environmental perspective, this is kind of what we addressed. It can reduce energy consumption and resource utilization. From a social perspective, yes, it guarantees, as you were mentioning, transparency. And I love, again, I'm going to refer that one thing that you told me one time, truth over trust. Trust is a difficult thing. And to go back to what Shannon was saying, ESG reporting or CSD reporting is now mandatory by law, but not even the regulator knows exactly what they want. They want specific outcomes out of a report, but they don't know how to get it. There will be no standardization anytime soon because there's a difficulty in understanding what sustainability means in the context of certain companies, especially look at iGaming. What does sustainability mean? Specifically, it's a difficult. They have a specific set of reports, but in standardizing that, blockchain is where standardization can support a unified method of saying, okay, this is empirical truth. This is something that is stored as data on the blockchain that cannot be manipulated. It cannot be changed, and it is put together according to a standardized methodology that is also on the blockchain. I cannot lie about how I put together my numbers. It's all there. Now, that is truth versus trust. The trust element will still always be in there because you need to trust the company to provide the right data, and there is nothing that will ever fix that. But there is a certain element of truth that blockchain can bring to this entire process and kind of bring everybody together, the regulator, the customers, the sector, the industry, and everyone.
And I think this is what you all have in common as panelists here. This, you call it truth, but it's accountability, it's transparency. It's that you can verify the data. So I think from the right to the left here, it is about the truth aspects of investments, and then something much more tangible like plastic tokens. But where do you see the biggest advantage when it comes to sustainability and the application of blockchain technology? Shannon, if it comes to ESG, you are more on the financial side. Glen, you are much more on the hard rubber meets the road side. What is your opinion?
So I think we'll see a big move towards blockchain. I think the technology is maturing, and I think it's going to become more reliable, more scalable, and more user-friendly. So hopefully more companies will adopt it, and then we can start to integrate it for reporting purposes.
And those reporting purposes, they can also be used in the actual sustainability reporting and concrete mitigation measures that actually will be implemented, right, Glen?
Yeah, basically, the way it works with the CSR plastic credits is we help a company to identify how much plastic waste they generate over a period of time. And we help them to offset that by purchasing CSR plastic credits to that amount. And then we retire those plastic credits so that they are then removed from the blockchain for all time. The certification they get from retiring their plastic credits is admissible in ESG reporting. They also can use it in marketing, in employer branding. In fact, later this month, I'm going to be speaking to the recruitment industry for iGaming to talk about how individual companies' ESG profiles can affect the kind of quality of candidates that they can recruit, and how people coming up now from Gen Z are very focused on the kind of profiles their future employers will have, and they'd be prepared to accept. So yeah, it's that is a very concrete effect of it. Yeah.
Glen, I love this idea that you have this token that you can buy, use it to burn it, and compensate for your carbon, for your plastic footprint. But then Razvan and Nicole, they are telling us, actually, we are not so sure. We know technically this works, but from a legal perspective, from an application point of view, the standards are not completely unified. How are we overcoming this contradiction that we have like a reality that is true, that is verifiable on the blockchain, as opposed to standards that are not so clear?
So I think the many blockchains that we have at the moment are a bit oversaturated. This is one thing that I always try to raise. I know there's a lot of blockchain fans, and there are people who blockchain everything. I remember at the Chainlink conference, we were talking to this guy, and he was just babbling on about, you know, crypto terminology. He was saying nothing. He was just blabbling on about, you know, and there are people who are very passionate about blockchain but understand nothing about what to do with it. And people who want to tokenize everything and, you know, put everything on the chain. We need to eliminate that noise. We need to eliminate that noise because a lot of people are getting fatigued. There's a lot of noise and garbage on the blockchain, on the many blockchains, that needs to be cleaned out or needs to be ignored so that we can focus on what actually makes sense. Blockchain is not for everything. AI is not for everything. All the various technologies, they have a specific purpose, and they bring value in specific areas. So we talk a lot with a lot of companies from iGaming, and sometimes we talk to executives and they say, well, yeah, I kind of get it. I understand. Okay, these are the advantages of applying this or going with this blockchain platform for, I don't know, for energy offset, for CSRD reporting, for whatever the case may be. And then we go and talk to the tech guys and they're like, it's all babble, it's all crypto. No, so there's this disconnect where people get fatigued from a lot of meaningless, senseless blockchain discussions that are, and you know, again, to repeat the thing that we always repeat, blockchain is not crypto and crypto is not blockchain. We need to bring more focus around what makes sense on blockchain and start addressing some of the stuff that doesn't make sense at all.
To the audience, the voice that Razvan is talking about that always insists we need to use blockchain technology as a solution, that voice is me, you know? But I have a question for you. So many of you are in some industry, whether it's gaming or something else. Raise your hand now and leave it up if your company has been considering a solution that is built on the blockchain. Raise your hand if they've been considering. And now, leave your hand up if they've actually been doing it. They're actually doing it? Okay, many hands are still up. Because normally, there's a huge challenge from bringing it from the concept of all the advantages that we talk about to the reality. So Nicole, how do you think this will happen in the future? You have a background where you both have access to the public and the private sector. So tell us, how is this going to happen?
I mean, if I had to start blabbing about it, I will never stop. But I think it needs to come from higher up for businesses to follow suit by then. So, for example, I always say there are a lot of policymakers, but no action takers. There are a lot of standards and guidelines, but how are businesses actually going to adopt to it? And like Razvan was saying, in my opinion, there's a lot of people talking, yes, and I'm just going to bring up a silly example. Sorry. I'm just going to bring up a silly example. For example, I did my master's in blockchain and DLTs, and someone would tell me, you studied Bitcoin. And I'm like, no, it's not the case. I actually studied everything else aside from Bitcoin. And that is the thing, is that I think there's a huge gap, and the solution needs to be education and educating people properly about it. And yeah, the thing is, maybe we need to drift away from the word blockchain and drift away from the words like decentralization, and just focus on the systems in itself and the benefits, but also be truthful about the bad side of things, because blockchain, I am going a little bit against you, does not save the world.
I, of course, disagree. We are coming, because blockchain is going to save the world, of course. We are slowly coming to an end of this panel. I have one closing question for each of you, the same, but you have the same shot at it. I hope there's 1 minute. If someone in the audience has a question, put your hands up, then you have your shot. So think about it. Let's go to the closing question, and we are starting again from this side with Razvan. The closing question is, what needs to happen so blockchain technology can have a positive impact on sustainable development?
Well, to what Nicole is saying, I think we should, if we look at what Microsoft and Apple and all the big ones are doing, if you remember 1 year ago, everything was metaverse, and up to a few months ago, everything was AI. Yesterday, Microsoft had Ignite. They didn't mention AI at all. Well, very little, but everything was about AI. Metaverse, there are so many things happening about it. Nobody's mentioning the word metaverse because there's fatigue. We need to bring the conversation back to where it makes sense, and stop about blockchain, token, everything, NFT, everything, and talk about the business cases and the value cases and actual successes. And as Nicole was saying, popularize what makes sense, educate people, and help them understand that blockchain is a foundational technology. It's not crypto, it's not tokens, it's not NFTs. It's something that can be used for good and has significant advantages over many other technologies.
That sounds beautiful, but I will not stop talking about blockchain. Glen, what needs to happen so blockchain can have a positive impact on sustainable development in the future?
Well, again, from my perspective, standardization and the mass adoption of a standard solution. In the previous panel discussion, Andreas spoke about carbon, and he mentioned that it was quite an abstract concept. Plastic is the absolute opposite of that. It is not abstract in any way. It's a very concrete issue that we can actually see around us at all times. What I can say is, as far as the CSR plastic credit is concerned, it's already in operation, has been in Asia for the last year and a half. We have seen private hospital chains with 35 hospitals adopting plastic neutrality. We've seen hotel chains, 70, 80 resorts going plastic neutral. I was in Rome at the weekend, and I spoke to the guy who actually created the CSR plastic credit, Wayne Dobson, and he informed me that they've just been in discussions with the Laotian government to use CSR in the nation's plastic waste management system, where it will incentivize waste workers and also deliver healthcare, protective equipment, and even childcare for people working in that sector. So it's there and it is coming. So I just want to see more of that.
Thank you very much. Nicole, what needs to happen?
I mean, seeing both the public and the private sector, I think, as I was saying, policy makers need to take action as well. And again, it's true, it's not just about finance. Blockchain technology can be adapted in different things, for example, the supply chain. And the people need to see as well the few cases of adoption. So, for example, there are use cases of Walmart, IBM, who are actually adopting these supply chains to trace their products and services and see that they're ethically sourced as well. So I think people need to look at such use cases. Governments across the EU, all over the globe, need to not just focus on regulation, but also focus on the technology in itself and its benefits. One simple statement: from condemnation to innovation.
From condemnation to?
Innovation.
Innovation. Okay, yeah, that's I still take it that what you say in a nutshell is we need to spread knowledge. We need to educate about those use cases that already exist and then have a meaningful implementation of other use cases and how people are interacting with the blockchain when it comes to sustainability. Not to twist your mouths. Not to twist your words anymore.
It's true, it's true.
Shannon, last one. What needs to happen so we can use the potential of blockchain for sustainable development?
So I think there's a couple of things. From my perspective, I think we need a more universal standard in terms of how we're going to use the chain to report. I think that we need a lot more education around it and a lot more adoption. The less adoption we have, the bigger issue we have. So companies need to adopt earlier, government needs to climb on board. And it's just a lot of education, I think, in terms of actually using it as a system, what solutions are out there. And yeah.
Investors also need to be on board in this part of the education of the potential here. We are slowly coming to an end of the panel. There is time for one question. Before we come to the question, this is a very brief panel. I can see there is so many more points that we really should talk about. I'm sorry to cut you off like that, but let's go to the question. Please.
Can you hear me? Okay, yes, I'm 𝐒𝐿𝐬𝐬, so working with the SingularityNet and the Impact Institute. The question is, of course, and this is related to the contradiction, because so which blockchain, right? As Razvan mentioned and Nicole mentioned, is Bitcoin, is it what? There are efforts now, and it was not mentioned here. Hedera Hashgraph is definitely so, is doing big efforts for interoperability and standardization. Hedera came up with a report, speaking of the contradiction, in which, for example, Cardano and Bitcoin were last. Cardano came up with a report in which Cardano was kind of among the first. So who do we believe? The question is, yes, so how can we trust? How can we make them collaborate? How can we change this? Is there any chance? And without that, I don't think we can solve the problem or eradicate the contradiction.
Wait a second, what is the question? And to which panelist?
Oh, whoever wants to answer. So the question is, can we ever resolve the contradiction? Which is a blockchain that is more prone to standards, or can we ever have the blockchains collaborate towards these standards when they actually point to each other for not being sustainable? So the question that Hedera pointed to Cardano not being sustainable, and somehow vice versa.
Who wants to take that one?
I can take it.
Razvan?
So, blockchain, like many other technology, like the internet bubble back in the early 2000s, everybody's rushing to do their own thing. Everybody has a closed circuit. Everybody's trying to be the best, to make a quick buck out of adopting a technology in a certain way or using it for something. But one thing that history has taught us is that with time, the market regulates itself. We are seeing a lot more open source. We are seeing advantages. We do have the wider technology and business community are aligned on what the principles that we need to have for foundational technology like blockchain. And there are standards that slowly we're seeing adopted. Ethereum, on Polygon, we are seeing a level of standardization around the approach. Of course, there still needs to be innovation, because standardization and innovation are a little bit an antithesis. But the core principles that drive all this, as we've seen with the switch that Ethereum did, it was focused on sustainability. It was focused on trust. It was focused on transparency. And we see a lot of the other chains following suit in that. Of course, there will always be runners, and there will always be players that want to contradict the market for various reasons, for financial gain, for exclusivity, and so on. But over time, the market will regulate itself.
Nicole wants to add a last comment?
To add on what Razvan was saying, I think blockchain technology is a work in progress in itself. So if we had to think about it, and if we had to think about the different consensus mechanisms, we are seeing that obviously, for example, proof of stake is more sustainable than proof of work. And then again, there are more, for example, proof of stake, it branches into different other categories. So it is a work in progress, and I think There is a lot more that needs to be done. However, we need to sort of not completely believe, but we need to be forward looking towards it.
Thank you very much. I think we have to wrap it up now. The next panel is about to start. Everyone, thanks to the speakers. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.